JavaScript events. In this lesson, we are going to learn how we can use events to manipulate HTML elements. We will build this button together in this lesson. And the purpose of this button, as you can see it on my screen, is that we want it to react to an event, an on-click event when that button is clicked in order to give us the current time. And as you might be thinking or guessing in your mind, when this button is clicked, the right output or outcome that is expected is for it to give us the current time. Let's find out if the button will actually react to the event of being clicked on. So I'll go ahead and click this button. And now you can see this is giving us the current time. So in this lesson, let's go forward and build this button together. So here's my boilerplate code, and we are going to build the button together. So with my boilerplate code, you can see that I already added a comment to this section so that we know what to do as the next step in the code. So the comment read thus: add a button to the page and click it to see the event in action. So that simply means that we should add a button to the page in order to be able to click on it and see how it will react to the event of being clicked on. So let's go ahead and make that button. It's just a single button and a simple button in order to actually demonstrate this. So I'll go ahead and make a button. And this button here, because I want it to react to an event, so I'm going to give it an on-click property. And then inside that on-click property, I'm going to go ahead and add a method which will fetch the ID through which I want to perform the event on. And my ID is going to be demo. So I want this ID selected. And now that I have the ID, then I can manipulate that ID in okay. This should be small letter. Dot HTML equals to this. And inside it, I want also have the time is, and then let's close the button. So now we have the button right here on my screen, but this button is not beautiful the way I want. So I'm going to add an ID that has been styled already and passed in the ID to it so that it can look more okay. Now that we have this button, if I go ahead and click this button now, this should give us the current state. It is not going to work because there's already an error in my code. So I'm seeing an error. Here is inner HTML, not double I, it's single I. So let me go ahead and click it, and you can see it is giving us the current time when the button is clicked. So this is an example of how JavaScript emits events. You can see that here we are not even using JavaScript yet, but this also can be done in JavaScript, as you are going to see in the next example. But this is how you can use HTML elements to emit events. With HTML, you can see that here we have a button which is an HTML element, and here is where we have the JavaScript part to emit the event, which is now giving us the current time. So this is one example or one way of how you can make your elements to react to on-click events. So moving on, let's look at another example of how this can be done. The first example, the JavaScript code changes the content of the element with an ID of demo. Now in this new example that we are about to make together, the code is designed to change the content of its own elements using this keyword. So let's make that button, and this time we are going to make the element to change the content of its to change its own content without referring to another element through the ID. So I'll go ahead and make the button on click this dot inner HTML inner HTML equals to date. So don't forget this is a date object. And now I can click this and say the time is. So now I have the button. This time again, I want to add an ID so that the button can come more visible. So now if I click on this, you can see that now this is also giving me the correct time. Now, one thing to note is that this for the first example and the second example, they are doing the same thing, but the difference between them is how they are doing it. You can see that when you look at the code of the first example, it is changing the content of the element with its ID by targeting the ID of the element that want to change its content. That was how the first code was made. But this second one is changing its own content without using an ID. And you can see that it's making use of this keyword to refer to itself, which means this element is making use of this keyword in order to refer to its element without any external dependency of referring to the ID of another element. Now we have seen how we can use button in HTML, to emit changes and react to on-click events. Now let's look at how we can actually do this in JavaScript. So now let's achieve the same using JavaScript directly. It's just that JavaScript can be several lines long, but it is going to give us the same results just as the first and second example. So let's dive in. So here I'm no longer needing this button part because I'm moving into the script tag in order to be able to achieve this. So I would remove this part, and then I will still need this on-click, but this time the on-click event is going to be calling my function name that I'm going to be making in JavaScript, and I want that function name to be, okay, let me make the function first. So let me leave it like this. Now, if you click this, it's not going to do anything because there's no handler attached to it. So let me go ahead and make a function with JavaScript. Let me call it display time because we want to display time. Okay, well, display dates or display time, anyone. So now that I have this, then I can target my ID, get element by ID, which is what I have inside the button, which is demo.inner HTML equals to dates. Now, I can then go inside my button, and inside this on click, I'll just call my function name to display dates. Now, if I go ahead and click this button now, you can see. So this is also working like the first and second example. The only difference is that instead of a single line of code for the first two examples, you can see that JavaScript is taking like 1, 2, and then we have to even go back inside our HTML to make changes. So it's just the ease of how you can construct this that separates doing it directly inside the HTML element or using JavaScript to control the event process. So this is how you can achieve this on-click events using JavaScript directly. So key takeaways from this lesson are this. HTML events are what happens to HTML elements. And these are some of the examples of the events that can happen to HTML elements. When the button is clicked, it's an example of an event. When a web page has finished loading, when the mouse moves over an element, when a keyboard key is pressed in order to control something, maybe on a web page or on an interface, and when an input field is changed, probably you have a form in your application. So these are some of the examples of events that can happen to HTML elements.